Hey everybody, it's Danielle here, and I'm with my host Ani.
Ta-da!
I was gonna say happy Friday, but nobody knows what day we record this podcast.
Hint, Friday.
Today is Friday.
But you'll be hearing this on a Tuesday.
We
so
release
happy
every
Tuesday.
Yes, happy Tuesday, and here we go. So every week we do a podcast called Big Money Stylist, and every week we have a different topic that we feel like is super relevant, specifically in our industry, but I actually have a lot of women entrepreneurs, friends, things like that listen to our podcast and they're like, I love your podcast. You know, Stephanie.
Yeah,
So
Dr. Steph.
she's going to be a guest here in a couple weeks, and she was saying, oh my God, I love your podcast. I'm like, I didn't even know you listened to it. She's like, yeah, and she owns her own practice where she does like Botox and like fillers and all that cool stuff. And she was like, no, I found it like super relevant. And like, it's hard sometimes as like a working mom. And I was like,
well, and I think it's 'cause the things we talk about aren't just like, here's how you do hair. It's really business and entrepreneurs and how to build. And then the problems that come with building and the fear and just kind of everything surrounding having your own business.
Well, and I always tell people, I'm like, you kind of have to take things one day at a time. Like, honestly, if I look at goals that I want to happen at this time next year, I immediately like close down and get overwhelmed. Like, I'm literally like, holy shit, like I'm drowning. Like Ani will get boxers from me where I'm like,
to be honest, I know by the time they hit a minute 30, I'm like, oh shit, she's spiraling in these boxers. I'm like, this is a minute 30, that's 2:45, here's 3 seconds. I'm like, oh my God, she's having a day.
And for those of you that don't know what Voxer is, it's a communication app that I use with all of my employees because it allows you, sometimes you just need to talk and a text does not get it done.
No.
So Voxer, you can send somebody a voice audio, but the cool thing is you can listen to it like 3 times as fast. So
it's like a walkie-talkie app.
I literally can't, I can't listen to people that talk at a normal pace anymore. I'm like,
the
what's
worst.
Like when I hear myself talk at a normal pace, I'm like, what's wrong with me?
See, and I feel like when I hear myself talk at a normal pace, I'm like, don't fast forward that. You can't hear anything.
You talk fast anyways.
I know.
And then I put you on Voxer. I'm like, I don't know what she said.
Although then we have team members like Jeff. I'm like, 4x speed. I'm like, I need you to be faster,
Jeff,
sir.
Yeah, Jeff's 4x speed is like normal talking. So anyways, Voxer is a great communication tool. But today, let's talk about, we have a guest we're bringing in on the show. We're bringing her in via cell phone. And she's actually a speaker that we're going to be having at the next BMS Is it 5?
4.
Oh, I was already ahead. See, I'm already
See, girl, you're in next year.
I'm in next
Danielle,
year.
reel it back.
So every year we've been I can't believe it's already 4. So every year we do a big convention. We typically hold anywhere from like 275 to 350 students is like the most we've had. This year we have right around 300 coming, and we're super excited. Like every year it just gets cooler and cooler, and every year there's different breakout sessions, there's different speakers, there's different everything, and everybody's like, this is so amazing. Even past students come back and they're like, holy shit, this is so fun. I'm like, I know, I love my job, it's awesome. So today we have a special guest, Miss Ashlee Norman.
Yes.
Ashlee, am I saying your last name right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
I was like, I'm gonna botch your last name or something. I'm like, but I'm pretty sure you say it just like it's spelled.
I mean, dude, you've known me for 3 years. You called me Annie the other day. I'm like, listen here, Donnie,
I
calm
call
down.
you Ani, and then I'm always like, what's your last name? River?
You're like, where are you from?
Riviera?
Mississippi? I'm like, no, get it together, woman.
So those of you that don't follow Ashlee on social media, tell us. I can't remember what exactly is your social media handle.
My social media handle is Ashlee Norman Hair, and I spell Ashley with 2 E's, no Y.
That's right. Perfect. Amazing. And you specialize mostly in color, and I know you teach a ton of education right now, and you're a mom as well. Do you have 1 kid or 2 kids? I can't remember.
I have 2 kids. I have a son who's 4 and a daughter who's 1.5.
Ooh, so still like toddler phase though. So they're like
Nuggets.
running around and you're just like chasing them like crazy and nice. So the reason I wanted to jump on a podcast and have Ashlee on the podcast today is she's going to be a speaker and we're so excited to hear from her. Just, I don't know about you, Ashlee, but I really like to just hear people's stories. Like why did they create the brand they did? Why are they educating? Why, what is kind of your why? And I briefly spoke with you on the phone and I instantly kind of like connected with your story. So I thought it'd be cool if you would just like maybe share your story of like why you're educating and why you're passionate about it.
Sure. Well, I've been an independent educator traveling and teaching just all over the world for the last like 5 years.
Did you say world?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I've taught some classes in London and also Canada. And I'm looking
Nice.
to go to Australia next year in 2020. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've been traveling and teaching for 5 years, but before that, I was an in-salon educator for like 10. So education has been like a big part of my career. And when I started the education program at the salon I was working at back in 2007, my heart for it was really just helping stylists, because when I first got on the floor, I didn't have the education that I needed, and I really struggled for a lot of years to build a clientele because I just really didn't know what I was doing, and getting the education outside of beauty school was just really difficult. And I really didn't want the stylist to struggle the way I did. So I was hoping to save them some pain. So that's kind of where it started.
What do you feel like are like the biggest struggles, like when you get out of hair school? Like, I feel like you're like thrown to the wolves, like literally.
Yeah.
It's like good fucking luck. Here's a comb. Like, what do you feel like are some of like the big struggles, or what were the big struggles for you at the time?
Well, I do think you really need to have a strong mentor and have a strong apprenticeship. And there's very few apprenticeship programs, fewer and fewer, especially now. So if you don't have that person to assist and to kind of like guide you along, it's going to be really hard. And I did have a mentor. I didn't get to really work with my mentor until I was already a few years like into my career behind the chair as a stylist. So I kind of had to work backwards a little bit. I probably should have been an assistant when I started working at the salon that I did. But because I was already a stylist, I just kind of like continued my education through advanced academies, but that can be also really expensive. Like if you don't have someone who's going to financially support you, then how are you going to afford that? So I was lucky like that I was like married, and my husband was like willing to like help me financially while I was like starting some of that education and then starting to work closely with my mentor. But yeah, like that doesn't always have, not everybody has the opportunity for that. So I was like going and taking these classes and then doing these teach packs into my salon. So I was basically like going and paying for that out of pocket, and then coming back and bringing that knowledge to the apprentices, because I wanted them to like get what I didn't have in the first place, and maybe what they didn't have the opportunity to pay for themselves at that time.
Right. It's so crazy too. I feel like we invest in people on our team so much, and sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes it comes back and really bites us in the ass. You know what I mean? And you kind of get to this place where you're like, you have to do things for you, and you can help other people along the way, but it gets to this point where it's like, for me, I remember thinking I was like teaching, I was always had people leaning over my shoulder learning extensions, and I would just share all my knowledge for free, right? And we get to this place, I think, as artists where we share so much for free at the cost of our own time, whether it's you don't have kids, whether it's in relationships or whether it's with your children, to where you get to this place where you're like, I can't do that anymore. I can't want it more than you guys do. You know what I mean?
100%. And that's why I went independent, was because it did get to that point where, you know, I was coming in like super passionate and super excited to share these ideas. And then I would have girls like just coming in like hungover and like not wanting to be there. And I just realized like if it's free and like they're coerced to be there, like it's a mandatory class that they have to attend, then they're not going to value it.
Right.
So like it's kind of interesting because, you know, that particular class that I was teaching, I still teach that technique. And it's funny because like I'll have people come in and pay like over $500 to take that class, and they're just like totally stoked and like thanking me as they leave, whereas like those assistants 5 years ago could give a shit. And you just think like, wow, like this person paid money and they're thanking me, this other person paid nothing. But at the same time, you know, when you're getting it for free, because you didn't have to take an investment out of your own pocket, there's no value to you.
Right.
So yeah, like I still have that same passion for education, for helping these stylists, but the fact that they bring their investment also makes them bring their presence, and they're ready to learn.
And when was it for you in your career where you're like, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna go out and teach, and I'm gonna charge, and and people that are in my class, I want them there because they want to be there. They're willing to invest in me and in themselves. Like, what made you get to that tipping point? Because I feel like myself as an educator, like I said, you get to this place where you're like, I can't do this at the cost of my own sanity, you know? And then it's like you charge what you're worth, but then it's like the caliber of the student in the room levels up. You know what I mean? So where was it in your career where you felt like, okay, I can't do this anymore? Do you feel like it was, for me, like my children were a huge, like, holy shit, this isn't a hobby anymore. Like, I'm super passionate about what I do, but this isn't a hobby anymore. Like, I got to sit down and do some real numbers. So share a little bit like your story and what really pushed you to kind of educate all over. Like you said, educating worldwide. Like, congratulations, number one. And number two, like, what really pushed you to get into it and start charging and doing the classes?
I think it goes back to that conversation that I was having with my husband about like starting a family. Like, I had been the salon educator manager for 8 years in the salon with my mentor, and I sat down with her and I was like, well, you know, I think I'm ready for the next step. I want to do a partnership with you. And I made her an offer that she ended up turning down. And so I was at this crossroads where it was like, well, you know, if I'm going to not get the return on the investment of like training this team, then what am I going to do? And at that same time, like, me and my husband were looking at starting a family. And that's when he was like, pulling my numbers and going, hey, babe, you know, like, if you break even after we pay a nanny and the maid, then you might have to be the nanny and the maid. And I was like, well, that's not that, like, you know, being a stay-at-home mom is like the worst thing in the world, but I just knew that, like, I wanted to have a little bit of my career and also still, you know, be with my kids and find that balance that was for me personally. Mm-hmm. And so at that same time, like, I was posting a lot of my balayage techniques, and Instagram was starting to become more popular, and somebody was like, hey, would you ever teach a class outside your salon? And I was like, okay, I could try. Like, I only had like 600 followers. I did like a $150 ticket price. It was like a demo and hands-on for like just open air painting. I sold only like 5 tickets, and I paid rent to my salon owner to like borrow the salon for a day. I ended up like buying the doll heads and everything. So I didn't make any money, but like the next thing, like, I got the next offer, and then the next offer, and the next offer. And like, thank God, like that started happening like right at the same time I got pregnant with my son. Mm-hmm. So by the time I was teaching my second class, I was already 6 weeks pregnant. And so I was like trying to like travel and like go through my first pregnancy, and it was like crazy because I was like getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and like having to buy like new clothes and be in front of people and gain all this weight. And but I did it. I like that 9 month deadline actually just kind of kicked me in the ass, and it was like, you know what, you have to do this. And there was a number that my husband gave me, and he was like, look, this is what you need to hit if you want to continue pursuing your career and, you know, still while still having kids. And literally like right after I gave birth with my son and I finished my first like tour is when I hit that number. So
wow. Nice.
It's been a major blessing in my life for sure.
I think sometimes too we do things when there's more on the line. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're pregnant and you with pregnancy, I mean, you actually have a time frame. You're like, I got 9 months. Like, you know, you're like, I've got to fucking hustle for 9 months because my time just got that much more valuable. And for me, you know, as a mom, I just had a baby myself 4 months ago, and I have 2 other children. So I have 3 girls. And with each kid, I'm like, my time just got that much more valuable. But in turn, all of a sudden you start to see things that maybe you didn't see, you know, and you start kind of, I know we hate the word balance, but realistically, like when people say, oh, there's no such thing as balance. Well, realistically there is, because you're a mom and you're doing it. You're balancing being a mom, you're balancing being a wife, and you're balancing, you know, having your passion in your career. And yeah, there's moments where you're like, man, I was a shitty mom. I'm not going to lie. I feel that sometimes. And then there's times where you're like, I fucking hate my job, you know, and you get to these level of kind of like burnout. But regardless, you kind of you do learn to balance it. So I want you to tell our listeners right now, just even if there's times that it's stressful, like you come home and you see your little year and a half year old baby's little face and you just want to squeeze it. You know what I mean? You just want to like grab their cheeks and like squeeze it. And for me, like I feel like that is sometimes what makes it worth it. And I'm just going to share this one quick story, and then I want you to share, Ashlee. There was a point in my career where I literally remember coming home from the salon. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and I was crying. I was like, I fucking can't do it anymore. And I remember just like thinking, like sitting in my car, like getting ready, just drying my tears before I go in and see my 2 children, and thinking like, what am I doing? And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this voice came to me and said, you'd be selfish to stop. And I'm like, wow. And I think as educators, we don't realize how many other people we're inspiring. You know what I mean? And so to stop and to say, you know, have that mommy guilt, and that's totally normal, but to stop, I realize I'm like, I'd be selfish to stop. And I realize, you know what, that's when I need to balance being both a mom and I can still teach and be passionate about hair. You know what I mean? So I just wanted you to like touch base on that. Like how do you feel like talk to me about mom life?
Yeah, well, it's definitely complicated. It's not perfect. So it's like that idea of balance is like your life on a wheel. And at some point, yeah, there's going to be a flat tire in an area, but that doesn't mean like you can't get back and like pump it back up and keep going. You know, it's not broken. You just have to fix it. And so what has to give? And it's going to be different from mom to mom. Like for me, it meant working one day on, one day off. Like when I went back to behind the chair after I had my son, I only worked Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, especially because I wanted to breastfeed. And it was important to me, like to have one day of breastfeeding and one day of pumping so I could keep my milk supply up. Also, it was just like a good balance for me. Like I would, you know, be going crazy at home and be like, oh, I just need a break. And then I would go and have that adult time with my clients, but then I would miss my baby. And so that was really great for me, one day on, one day off. It also gave me an opportunity to start taking a little bit better care of myself, like on my days off, like going to the gym and like putting my son in the kids club so he could play for an hour. And then like we would both go home, and sometimes we'd both take a nap, or he would just take a nap, and then I would have a chance to get back to my emails or whatever else. I also think like it's important to like have your support structure. I mean, I'm really fortunate. My mother-in-law was like, she was a special ed teacher for 25 years. And we made this agreement that I would pay her to essentially be a nanny for me so that she could retire and take care of her grandson. And so that has been really, really, really amazing and really helpful to have her, because when I wanted to start traveling and teaching again, when he was only 5 months old, she was able to go with me so that we could travel with him, and I could still breastfeed him and not have to be away from him for 4 days at a time. So we just kind of made it work. I mean, it was terrifying to think about traveling with a baby and think about like, oh, what if he has a meltdown? And then I'm not that mom on the plane. And then you just kind of hit this point where you're like, fuck it, I'm only going to see these people like once in my life. Like, I'm never going to see them again. Like, who gives a shit what they think about me?
Right.
You know? And so, like, and then I traveled with 2 kids, you know, and, like, by the time I didn't even care if I was, like, breastfeeding on the plane anymore on the cover. It was, like, who cares? But, like, I don't know. It's funny because, you know, I really thought for a time, like, I was really terrified to become a mom, because I thought, man, like, this is really going to hold me back, and I'm so ambitious and this and that. But, you know, what I realize now is, like, actually, like, not becoming a mom was really actually kind of making me weak. Because, you know, like, they say, like, oh, mom's mom power, this and that. But it's true. Like, you know, I kind of say, like, especially a newborn is kind of like, you know, the ultimate boot camp. Because, like, you know, even, like, a drill sergeant is not going to get you up every 3 hours and demand that you feed him through your ticks. So, like, I don't know anything that's harder than that. Like, going through that and like this, you know, just the sleep deprivation, and then flying cross country, and there's a 3-hour time change. Like, there was times where I'd be painting a girl's hair and the whole room felt like it was spinning. But, you know, I did it. And now, like, in the last 6 months, like, once my daughter turned 1, like, I was able to start traveling and like leaving them home. And, you know, I know that like they're with my husband over the weekend, and then they're with my mother and father-in-law like during the week. And so it's like, yeah, there's a part of me that feels like guilty that I'm not with them every second of every single day. But then I kind of look to my left and to my right in the airport, and I see these businessmen on their laptops, and I'm thinking, you know what? These guys are not guilty. They're not feeling guilty right now, because when they come home and they bring a paycheck home and they provide for their family, they feel like they've done their job. And so, you know, as long as I'm not out there like donating my time and like, you know, like you said, like running my business like it's a hobby, and I actually come home and I put that money in my daughter's like college fund, and I'm funding her college, and she's one, you know, like I have to be proud for that.
Right.
And I have to be like, you know what? No, like I'm providing for my family too. That being said, I still do the 1 day on, 1 day off when I'm home. So like I'm still doing pickup and drop off like Monday, Wednesday, Friday with my son, you know, with all the other moms that maybe do work a little bit, or maybe are stay-at-home moms. So it's like, for me, I feel like I do have the best of both worlds. And so, I mean, it works.
I feel like when you become a mom too, it's our capacity expands. You know, like you said, you were like, oh, I can't, if I have children, maybe it'll hold me back in my career. And then all of a sudden you do the numbers in your business, and like your husband said to you, hey, babe, like these are the numbers you have to hit. And you're like, oh my God. And it just puts a whole nother reality on things. And it's amazing to hear women like yourself where you're like, yeah, I have, you know, I'm balancing having children, and I'm also now having more success in my business than ever, you know, and you maybe wouldn't have looked at it the same had your husband not brought you the facts of like, hey, like here's where we're at financially doing hair, and we need to go to the next level, you know? So
And I love that we're talking about this because BMS Con 4 is coming up. I mean, it's literally right around the corner. And I've been texting and messaging, you know, 300 people that are coming. And actually quite a few of them, they've either been like, Ani, look, I'm behind on the pre-training. I'll be honest with you, it's my first pregnancy. I've been throwing up. Or they're like, I had a baby and I literally don't know what to do with my life. I was talking to one mom this morning, and she's like, my baby's going to be about, I think she said like 3 months old. She's like, can I bring a baby? I don't know what to do. My husband's coming, but what if I have to pump? What if I don't? She's like, I don't know what I can do. I'm like, look, you're not the first to breastfeed. You're not the second, not the third. Like we've had this happen almost every event. I was like, come, we make it work. Like it's fine. But it's so interesting because I'm not a mother, so I can't relate to it in that sense. But I see the artists who are coming in. They're literally like, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, no, you can. Other people have done it before. Like you said, you have to push past that capacity and know that you are capable of doing more because, look, I only have a dog and that's hard enough. I can't imagine a human.
I just think, and I'll let you go, Ashlee, because I know your time's valuable and I appreciate you coming on the show today. We're so excited to have you at the convention and be one of our speakers, and just really excited for your success. And it's just really cool to hear other people's stories. Like for me, I like to connect with people on that level because I feel like with my education, that's really what we try to do. We know it's not just about another foiling technique. We know it's not just about another extension technique. We know that like having success in your life, there's always a good story to it. So I'm going to let you go, Ashlee, but I'm so excited to see you at convention and actually meet you in person. And you guys listen to our podcast every Tuesday, and we're
gonna have more people on.
We're gonna have more people on. I know we're slowly having more guests. Like we have a podcast studio, but it's hard to get people live. So I just started doing this where I'm like, let's do it over the phone. Like, let's do it.
It works perfectly fine. Yeah.
So anyways, Ashlee, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for being on, and I'll see you here in about a week and a half.
2 weeks, something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Super excited.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
But man, all the messages that I've been getting from the girls, and when I read it, because I always think back to one of our platform artists, Michelle Waugh.
Yeah.
I remember Michelle pregnant at her BMS intensive, walking up and down these motherfucking stairs the whole time. Like, not only that, owns a salon, is a mother, has a stepchild as well, and she was in the Army. And I'm like, oh, my sweet baby. She's never missed an event, whether she was pregnant, whether she was sitting in the back breastfeeding. Like,
I was thinking when Ashlee was just saying, like, you know, I'm trying to teach and I'm getting bigger. And I was like, you're thinking about quarterly, aren't you? Like, we do these quarterly events with my mastermind. There's like 100 students in there. And like towards the end of my pregnancy, I couldn't even talk. I couldn't stand on stage and talk. I was like, I'm sorry.
My favorite part is
I'm out of breath. Like, it was so bad.
At the second quarterly, Danielle stood up and said 4 words, 2 of those being hair boner.
Oh, yeah.
One of our platform artists literally took away her mic and was like, you know what? I don't think you need this.
It's like, I don't know. I just want to like deliver a child and do this. But it was crazy.
I think
I have to
It's
take
so
it back
hard.
to balance though, like because I know that word literally triggers so many people, and I feel like one of the things we teach inside of our education is called Core 4.
Yeah.
And
Body, being, balance, and business.
And I can't tell you, like, we started implementing it with new students that are coming to our next event, and they're like, oh my God, thank you. I think that stylists, whether they admit that they have balance or not, like, it's something that you have to schedule time for yourself. And I even like how Ashlee was like, it was super important for me to be able to, like, nurse my child. So I was like, one day off, one day on, one day off. And actually, I started doing like the whole 3-3-3 thing.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't want to be at the salon. I was working like every day and I felt like I was missing out. And I was like, I can condense all of my clients into 3 days.
And if you're curious, the 3-3-3 rule that we have inside of BMS is you work 3 days a week doing 3 clients a day at 3 hours apiece. And that's how I started inside of BMS. And doing that, I was still making $20,000 a month. That's
what's so crazy. Like I hear, and I've said this before, but like you take, especially when your time is that much more valuable, and say you're bringing in like 10 grand a month or 15 grand a month or 20 grand a month. We have students that are literally doubling their income. And when you double somebody's income and you give them a tool like that doubles their income, it changes a life. It changes a family.
It changes your life.
And that's why, like I even said, like I'm like, when I had that voice come to me, it's like, you'd be selfish to stop. It's because taking people, giving them a tool and having that much success, I knew it would change lives. I just knew it.
And that's why even I tell people, because there's a point of there's sacrifice, but then I always say that I don't really feel like I sacrificed anything to come here. Like, yes, I had my own business. I made great money. I had all the fucking freedom in the world, a house, I was with my family, my friends, my fiance, like everything. But I don't, because to me, sacrifice almost has a negative connotation. Right. Like, oh, I had to sacrifice this big, beautiful thing in my life for that. Well, I don't feel like I sacrificed anything. I just made a choice.
Right.
And I made not the same decisions you've made, but kind of that, like, yes, I want to help other people. Because honestly, we could probably cut out the education, make just as much money doing hair, probably a lot less stress, and just go on about our a lot less stress. But at the end of the day, there's a part of that we miss that literally inside of us doesn't get filled if we're not educating and like helping other artists.
Right.
And that's why seeing these women come in now, because I've heard people say it before, and I even read it on Instagram from someone who's very, 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 very well known in the hair industry. So I won't say who it is. I'll tell you later. Okay. But she literally made a post and she was like, balance doesn't exist. And I'm like, that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I saw
Don't
that
encourage
post.
that.
I saw that post and I was like, listen, we all work really hard, but balance does exist, whether you put a positive or a negative connotation on that specific word.
Yes. And so for all the moms that are listening, once again, I get it. Like, hey, I'm not a mom. I don't have children, but I'm surrounded by, literally, I think I might be one of the few people that doesn't have kids right now, maybe one of like 3 or 4.
You got a dog.
I do.
Thank you. Even having a dog, I bet you were like, I got to get back to my dog. Like
To be honest, 2 days in, my thought was, what the fuck did I do? This is so hard.
Just prepping you.
And then when he poops, I'm like, oh my God, you people do this for years? Holy cow. But it's a lot of dedication. It's a lot of work. And I think Ashlee is very fortunate that she has that support because I'll be honest, a lot of women don't.
You know what? When I had the worst anxiety. So like, I moved when my second baby was 7 months old. I moved from Utah to Arizona. And my husband was like trying to build a business, but I was kind of really like not paying the bills because I don't even think I was making enough to pay the bills, but I was putting enough food on the table and paying for rent at the time. Mm-hmm. And I just remember like I moved to a whole new state where I knew nobody. I had no support. And I was like, I still had to make things work. I was like, babe, I'll work on Saturdays. You're going to watch the kids on Saturdays. I started only working Saturdays and then I found somebody to help me like Tuesdays and Saturdays. And like, I just always found a way to make it work. Even when I felt like I was so alone, I like went through this period where I like just told my family and friends and everyone, I was like, fuck off. And I just moved out of state. You know what I mean? And I just felt so alone, but I knew that I had to rebuild my relationship with my husband. I knew I had to like make some money. And unfortunately, sometimes I think we're faced with trials in our life that make us realize like, holy shit, I don't have another choice.
Yes. And I think that's the part, though, that people think that balance is easy all the time. It's not. It's not fucking easy. Sometimes having balance is work. There are going to be days where she was right. It's skewed. There really isn't a lot of balance, or you're more tired, you're more exhausted. There might be moments or weeks depending on what's going on. I feel like we're all hitting that tipping point right now because we have the biggest events of the year coming up in just 2 weeks in both companies.
Right.
So it's not even like it's like, easy one day. Right now, now we're like, okay, we need to grind a little bit more, work a little bit more, film a little bit more. There'll be a little less free time.
Right.
That's okay. We make it work for this short period. And then after, it's a little more smooth sailing.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to kind of prioritizing your time as well in order to create that balance.
Yes.
My husband literally, I think, could sleep 2 hours a night and then work. I have to be like, babe, you've been working for like 14 hours straight. Like, your eyeballs are twitching on me.
Do you know, he does the thing where he goes,
yeah,
like,
no.
And I'm like, what is wrong?
You're like, he calls it an eye yawn. Like, you know, when you yawn and he like does this weird
oh yeah,
thing,
he'll go,
yeah, and you're like, how's it going?
please go to bigmoneystylistnow.com and look at my face, because this is what Garrett does.
It's like he calls it an eye yawn. He's like rolling his eyes but like twitching at the same time. I'm like,
As he's sipping a 5 hour, I'm like,
he's lost it and bring him back. No, but even for my husband, I was like, I remember being first married and I was like, I don't want to be married to you if we're not actually spending time together. This is a stupid relationship to be in. I'm just making your children. Like, you can fuck off. Like, we need to start scheduling time together. And I remember when we had no money, literally, we couldn't even pay for a babysitter. I was like, well, if my relationship is sinking and I don't know if I like my husband, where do you think I should invest a little bit of money? A fucking babysitter? Yeah. And you have to learn how to prioritize your time based on what fucking ship is sinking.
And dude, I'm just going to say, whether you're married, whether you have a boyfriend, like, this goes across the board for relationships.
Right.
Because look, I had a very similar talk with my boyfriend very recently that I was like, look, motherfucker, I get we live about an hour and a half apart, where he's in LA, I'm in Orange County, but I was like, if you have time to do you have time to come down and see me.
Yes.
So let's talk about this. And when you know me, I'm very logical, and I'm also a very, very quick thinker, and he's one who likes to like ponder things and let it sink in. So you can imagine how it goes when we have discussions on anything.
But that's, you have to be like, no, we have to make this a priority, otherwise why are we in this relationship? And all of a sudden it's like you start doing things like scheduling date nights.
Yes, and here's what I tell everybody. Nobody has time. Look, no one has time for anything. You make fucking time. You make time for business. You make time for partnerships. You make time for filming. You make time for your actual partner. You make time for your children. You make time for your pets, because realistically, nobody has any fucking free time.
No.
You make time based off of what is a priority. Instagram and fucking around on it, not a priority. Diddling around with some fucking vegan friends, not a priority.
But you know what else too that I'm guilty of, and I'm sure many stylist entrepreneurs, human beings are guilty of, specifically women, I would say.
Yes.
We don't allow ourselves a lot of free time. Like, if we got a manicure, we're like, nailed it. Like, I got a gel mani today. Like,
I'm good for 3 weeks.
yeah.
No!
Yeah, I'm good for 3 weeks. No, like, we don't ever give ourselves like a little bit of time.
Yes.
If I have free time, I'm always like, I feel like I need a baby on my hip right now, or I feel like we're just giving human beings, like women are in general. And so I always tell my artists, I'm like, you need like an afternoon for you. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, even if you have a little bit of mommy guilt roll in and you've been working your ass off, guess what? You might just need 2 hours to go get a pedicure.
And look, I'm also going to say there's a difference between being busy and being productive.
Right.
You don't have to be doing something every minute of every day, because there are some days where I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down for the next 2 hours. Everything gets off. My phone gets turned off. I'm going to knock some shit out, be so fucking productive, and that will open up the rest of my day.
I have a problem doing that. I'm so sidetracked very easily, and I feel like I'm constantly like I have 92 things going on in my mind, and
preach to the choir.
I'm constantly feeling like, did I follow up with that? Did I follow up with that? Did I follow up with that? And it's funny because like just recently, I swear to God, like I'll ask you something, you're like, Danielle, you already asked me that, because again, we're coming down to crunch time to a big event, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't even know what day it is.
Are you talking about
right
the
now.
10-hour training? Literally, Danielle and I have been in one conversation where she's like, we can't film this for 10 hours. I'm like, we don't have to film it for 10 hours. Here's the framework for 2 hours.
You can
and then
tell
this
I've
morning,
like almost lost my shit. Like, I'm on the ledge because I'm like panicking about it. I'm like, it's not gonna happen.
and then I'm like, Danielle, we don't have to film for 10 hours. And then she goes, but we don't have 10 hours. I'm like, we're not filming for 10 hours.
But I couldn't hear you. And that's another good point to bring up. When you're sinking and somebody offers you a solution, you can't hear it because you're already drowning.
That's why I started saying it and then typing it, going, here is the plan.
I have to physically see somebody write it out, and then I'm like, and
deep breath.
That's why even at the beginning of this podcast, I'm like, you guys, like, we get it. And specifically, like, talking about balance or working mothers or working girlfriends.
I'm a dog mom. Does that count? I'm just kidding. It's not the same as a human.
But you really, like, sometimes you have to look at things day by day. And we constantly get artists in our program who are worrying about things 6 months in advance. And I have to be like, I want to tell you something right now. You're not there yet, and you don't need to worry about those problems that you're not facing yet. You need to worry about the problems that are right here. If you can't do the simple shit, you're not going to be able to do the big shit. And so it's really like prioritizing what you're doing and taking it day by day.
Yes. And once again, guys, prioritize. Even tonight, it's Friday when we're filming, but I got invited to some big fucking thing in LA with the who's who, whatever. And I sat there and I was like, could I go? I'm like, I can go. But then I'm like, oh, that's an hour and a half down, then all night long. Then I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I have other stuff to do. I sat there and I'm like, I can.
You're not going?
No. I'm like, I could go there and I could do that. Or I could stay home. I could get all the filming notes ready. I could get the notes for BMS Con 4 ready. I'm like, I could get so much more done
but on
staying home.
opposite side of that, I'll get like that too. And I'm like, no, I just don't care. I'm just tired. I want to wear my Uggs with holes in the toes that are really ugly and gross, and I want to sit on my TV and I want to have a drink, and I don't sit on my TV, sit on my couch. I want to just have a glass of wine or whatever, and I want to do nothing. And then I'm like, you know what? I need to go out. I need to like feel pretty and put on a skirt and go have a date night or whatever. You know what I mean?
I know.
And sometimes I'm just saying, sometimes it's cool to do the Netflix and chill or whatever, or get work done or whatever. But sometimes I even have to force myself like to go out.
Yeah. And see, my logic behind not doing that was I'm like, okay, tomorrow at 12:30, I have an appointment I have to go to. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to grab Ronald, grab my iPad, go down to the park, let him go run around like a fucking lunatic while I work.
You work.
And get some done.
You know that's why moms go to parks. They're literally on their phones like.
But you know what? We have so many guys on the team. I'm like, hey, if you guys want to babysit Ronald, take him to a park. Women will flock to you. And they're like, really? Can I borrow your dog? I'm like, yes, you can.
It's like a chick magnet.
But those are my final words. Guys, prioritize. If it's not important, if it's not feeding you, if it's not helping you, if it's not encouraging you, if it's not pushing you forward, fucking cut it out of your life and move on.
And figure out in your life what areas are you drowning. And possibly if those are areas that you want to be better, that you need to prioritize your time in that specific area. Even if it's something as simple as taking some time for you, going on a date night, prioritizing like play dates with your kids on certain days, whatever it is, you have to look at your time and it just becomes that much more valuable. And you know what's so cool? I love, again, like hearing other people's stories.
Yeah.
Because I think we're all going through a lot of the same shit. And it's just like, we're not alone. We're not alone. And so the more we share our stories, the more we kind of evolve and can be, I don't want to say better human beings, but like literally it's like we kind of like level up and we figure out our capacity goes up and we figure out how to balance life productively. So that's my final words with you guys.
Guys, thank you for being here. This is episode 97 of the Big Money Stylist podcast. You can watch us and our mannerisms, which, by the way, I got so many videos of me doing a gremlin last time. I'm like, God, you've got to be kidding me.
Whenever I pull up a screenshot, we're always like, I'm like, why are our arms like, we're really animated, I guess.
I love it. But you can go to bigmoneystylistnow.com and see what we're doing. And guys, stay tuned because we're coming up to the 100th episode. We're going to do something fun.
Let's pop some champagne or something.
Oh, we're going to do something. Do you remember that taco hat that Garrett used to wear during filming? Did you throw that away?
I'm sure I did. That was embarrassing.
It was awesome. Guys, thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week.